is Ajanae Smallwood, and this is my presentation, Beyond Supervision, Understanding Probation's Role in Social Change. Why I chose DAC, the North Carolina Department of Adult Corrections. Real experience, real impact, and real understanding. Basically, I chose the Department of Adult Correction because I interned here and they gave me direct exposure to how probation actually operates in real time, and it allowed me to understand the real impact that it has on individuals and social change as well. Project focus. This project focuses on understanding how probation officers work within the justice system to address recidivism and interrupt cycles of injustice through rehabilitation and supervision. So recidivism is just basically people reoffending after they get out of prison. North Carolina has the highest recidivism rate. About 6 months after people are released from prison, they end up going right back to prison or going right back to jail. Cycles of injustice often include like poverty, abuse cycle, lack of support, and things like that. It's basically what drives an individual to commit a crime. My collaborator was Mr. Justin Lovett. He's the AJDM, which is the Assistant Judicial District Manager for NCDAC Districts 14, which covers Durham, Orange, and Chatham counties. His role is that he oversees probation operations, he provides leadership to staff, and he has 13 years of experience. Why did I choose him? I chose him because I knew that he had a lot of connection within the system, and being that he has 13 years of experience, he gave me insight into how the system actually works, coming from starting out as a probation officer, then moving into a chief position, and now being an assistant manager. This is our first conversation, background and role. Basically, we talked about his background, his career path to enter into probation, and his motivation. So basically, long story short, he was undecided as to what he wanted to do after he got out of college. He was working as a mall cop, and then he just started to search for careers, and he knew that he wanted to help individuals, and he wanted to work within the criminal justice system, but he was still unsure, and so he ended up doing a little bit more research, and he found probation, and 13 years later, he's still in the system. Okay. My two was basically a supervision approach, which is basically how he was when he was a probation officer. So knowing he really balanced report building and enforcement. So basically, while building report is essential, it must be balanced with enforcing rules and ensure compliance. So with these justice involved individuals, you want to make sure that you have a connection with them, especially while on probation, while you're supervising them. But you also want them to know that they have rules and they have to follow by things that were ordered from the court since they, did what they did. Different people, different approach. Basically, this means that every justice involved individual that you are supervising, you cannot supervise everybody the same. One may need mental health treatment and another may need substance abuse treatment. You cannot supervise everybody the same. So it can't be just a one size fits all. Everybody has to be supervised differently because everybody has different needs that they need met. Consistency, trust, and accountability. Basically, a lot of people who are in the system, they have trust issues, and so you have to be consistent with them and follow through. So if you tell them that you're gonna do a home contact at 6:50, you have to be there at 6:50 because they don't, they're gonna feel as if you just like everybody else and you can't be trusted. Conversation 3, just was our connection. The first source, we discussed system focus on punishment versus rehabilitation. We talked about constructive agency, building new patterns versus just reacting to problems. Number 2, we connected empathy to supervision practices. And I chose the empathetic civilization, which highlighted that empathy was a driver of social change. And then I explored the importance of communication and dialogue, which was the deliberative democracy source. And basically, it just says that having actual dialogue instead of just one-way communication can also improve behavior and change. Conversation 4 basically was just a wrap up and reflection. We reflected on his career experiences and any lessons that he learned. And he highlighted personal and professional growth, and he still reinforced that commitment to being a mentor and helping others. What I learned, this is my personal analysis. Social change occurs through small and consistent actions. Systems can evolve through collaborative approaches, and change begins within everyday actions. Here is my course material. So the first one was called Paradox of Protest and the Culture of Contest, which basically focused on moving away from systems that are built just upon punishment and control and instead build new patterns of behavior. So for example, when I brought this up to him, He told me how, for an example, he may have an offender who may test positive for like meth and THC, but then 2 months down the line, the same offender only tests positive for THC. So he told me that he would praise the small wins, even though the offender is still testing positive for a drug. He wasn't testing positive for all three. So 1 month he tested positive for three drugs. 2 months later he tested positive for only one. So he said celebrating those small wins and not focusing on why you still doing drugs. Instead of it being why you still doing drugs, is hey, good job for letting go of these first two drugs. Now let's just remain positive and work on getting rid of THC. The empathetic civilization, basically we just talked about um basically we was talking about how Rick argued that empathy is essential for social change. And when I brought this up to my collaborator, he basically told me that he would use strategies different to build on emotional connections, such as when an offender came in, sometimes they didn't feel like talking. So he would give them like a nice breaker and they would pick a word or pick how they were feeling for that day. And to get them talking and open up, he would just continue to build on that so they could have an open conversation. And then the last one, democracy built on communicative action, as I just mentioned. He would encourage his apprentices to talk, and as he would ask them questions, he would ask open-ended questions instead of just yes or no, so you could get that you can continue building that rapport, and the dialogue won't be just one way. Um, Implications for practice. This is what I believe people could do in real life to make the situation better and to just improve supervision. Effectiveness requires a balance of accountability and support. Empathy should be integrated while maintaining professional boundaries. Individualized approaches lead to better outcomes. Dialogue based interactions improve engagement and trust, and reinforcing progress can support long term behavior change. My personal reflection after this presentation, during this project, and everything, it has shifted my perspective on probation work. I was able to gain a deeper understanding of the challenges that people face in the system. I was able to recognize the importance of balancing and supervision. I developed a greater appreciation for empathy and communication, and it also strengthened my interest in working within the justice system. And change begins within the system begins with how we choose to engage with each other. And that's my presentation.